All right, guys. As soon as I see that we are live, we're good to go. Waiting on the connection to come through, and then we're good to go. About a 30-second delay or so. That's crazy how much of a delay there is. All right, we are solid. All right, guys. Welcome to the stream. Sorry about that. There's about a 30-second delay on my end, so if you guys are still hearing me blab on, I apologize for that. We're going to go ahead and hop right into the tutorial today. This is going to be a cool one. Let me full screen this while I talk about it real quick. So I love physics. You guys already know that, right? I teach physics in the CG Cookie Core course for Blender, and I love it. I mess around with physics every day, and this was something I had in my mind for a while, was to do something like this, which is just a smoke simulation, right? It's basically, we have two torus objects that are colliding with each other, and I knew this was going to look cool, and so I had to kind of mess around with the settings a lot. I have all the settings copied and pasted for you guys, so you can copy the exact settings. But basically, all this was done from scratch using Blender's built-in physics simulator, using smoke simulation specifically, some force fields, and some other things. And we're going to hop right into it. We're going to build this entire thing from scratch. Now, just keep in mind, our result might not be exactly like this one, right? Because there's going to be a little, like here and there, you're going to get like varied results depending on the color ramps that I use, the color choices, the HDRI, texturing, things like that. But this is ultimately the type of result that we're going to get as we go through this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right into it. This is going to be a fun one, and it should be pretty easy. Believe it or not, these types of simulations are super easy to set up, even if you're a complete beginner. So I'm going to walk you guys through every single step. Let's go over the file first. I'm going to go ahead and X out of this. So this is our initial file right here. I just have to snap to my other camera real quick. So as you can see, we're in render view right here. Now I hid a couple of objects, but you can see this is the kind of result that we're getting. I'm going to go ahead and unhide the other objects. And I kind of made these little turbine looking things. These are like our smoke emulators, and you can see that they're kind of emulating that smoke. And we baked all the way out to frame 200, but you can see right here on stream, this looks pretty good for what we're getting, right? And we're only at a resolution of, let's see what I recorded here. Here's our stats if you guys want to copy these over, because these are the stats we're going to be using. My resolution for this is 350. This took about an hour to bake, but we're going to do a simplified version to show you guys what this is going to look like, and then we'll come back to this for the shading and such. So let's go ahead and open up a brand new document here. We'll save this one. All right, we are in a fresh document. I'm going to delete everything as always. We're going to completely start from scratch here, and I'm going to go ahead and start off with a cube, and I'm just going to go to Object, Quick Effects, and then we're going to go right into Quick Smoke here. And then the reason I do this is just so it sets up our domain and everything that we're going to need. Right now, we're going to click on our domain, which is this external box. I'll go over to my physics settings, and I'll scroll down, and I'll change the type under the cache settings to all, and that's going to allow us to actually bake this out and get some really high quality bakes. I'm also going to scale this a little bit. I want our physics like cube here, our domain, to be quite big. All right, so we need a lot of space for like what we're about to do. I'm going to delete our initial cube. This is our flow source, but I'm going to delete it because we're going to use a torus. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a torus here. Okay, I'm just going to rotate it like this, and basically we're going to have two flow sources. It's going to be two different torus objects that are going to be pulled in towards each other with a force field. So I'm going to move this off to the Y direction, maybe scale it up a bit, and then I'll just give it a fluid type flow, and then make sure this is set to smoke, right? Because we're doing a smoke simulation. Now, in this case, we're going to want to use geometry. And the reason why is because you can think of this like a smoke ring, right? If you were to have a smoke ring kind of travel out of something, this is going to be that geometry of that smoke rather than like smoke continually being emulated, right? So this is going to be one solid thing of smoke. So we're going to go ahead and set the flow source surface emission to 1, which means it'll basically only take up the amount of space that this torus takes up. And then volume, you can keep that at 0. Everything else should be good to go. Let's go ahead and do a quick test bake here and just make sure everything's working. I am going to just see what happens when I click bake real quick. I just want to make sure our flow object is acting properly, and it is. And you can see if I press play here, right, we're at a really low resolution, we have smoke, and that's good. That means we set everything up properly. Let's go ahead and click on free all, and now here's the part where we're going to have to start involving physics. But before we do that, let me duplicate my torus with Shift D. I'll lock it to the Y-axis, and I'll just go into my side view, make sure they're pretty even. They don't have to be perfect. If you guys really want, you can fine tune it up here in the transform settings. And now we're going to go ahead and add in a force field. Now this force field is just going to be a regular force field, and we're going to pull everything into the center. The key here is that we're going to keyframe the settings here. So very first thing, the shape, we don't want this to be point, we want it to be plane. Right now you can think of this as a flat plane, right? But we're going to rotate it. So I'm going to press RX90 to rotate it upwards, and then I'm going to make it flat this way as well. So right now we just rotated it upwards. Now we want to make it flat, RZ90, and now it should be flat. Even though you can't see it, it should work properly. To test if this is working, we're going to make our strength -10. We're going to click on our domain, and we're going to bake just to see what we get, and just make sure the smoke is traveling inward here. And as you can see, it's traveling outward. Now, one of the reasons for this is our settings in our domain. So let's go ahead and fix that and make sure we replicate our exact settings. I'm going to click on free all, and let's see what I don't have here. I'm going to go ahead and do a split screen view if it wants to let me. It really doesn't want to let me here. Hold on. There we go. All right, so in our domain settings, let's go ahead and make sure we have a couple things set up. Well, first of all, our resolution isn't quite high enough. So let's just turn this up to 100 so we can see a little bit better. Time scale, I'm going to set that to 2. Now, some of the key settings down here are the buoyancy density and the heat. Heat makes things rise, so we're going to set that to 0. I don't want any of this stuff to rise or fall. And then for our density, I'm also going to set that to 0 as well. I just found that these settings work best. I'm also going to knock down our end frame to 120. And let's click bake, and let's just see what we get here. You can see it's going to take a little bit longer to bake at this point. But again, this result, I promise guys, will be worth it. Let's go ahead and press escape, and let's just make sure everything looks proper. So right now we have our smoke expanding. So let's go ahead and see how that looks. All right, so we know that our force field is pulling the smoke inward. There's only one problem. It's pulling it inward too much. So let's go ahead and let's rectify that. I'm going to full screen this. I'm going to free our bake. I'm also going to turn our force field back, RZ90, because I think I had it turned the wrong way. And we're going to keyframe it. So I'm going to pull up my timeline here. I'm going to go to about frame 15 here. All right. And then right here on the strength property, I'm going to hover over this and press I. I want my strength to be 10 up until a certain frame. And then right around frame 16, I'm going to knock it back down to 0. So basically, it's going to pull everything in real quick and then stop. I'm going to press I again while hovering over the strength. And then let's go ahead and bake this real quick. I'll just bake this out to like 100 real quick, and we will see what this looks like. Again, a lot of this stuff, like leading up to this tutorial, was a lot of experimentation. Hopefully, we get a better result now. And then basically, once you get the result you want, you just raise the resolution, wait, and you should get a good result. There we go. All right, so take a look, guys. This is what we were looking for. Watch what happens now when I press play. See how everything goes inwards and then it collides? So this took a while to figure out how to get this result, right? I've seen this done before in like other programs, but I just wasn't sure how to do it in Blender, because if you let the smoke flow with an initial velocity, you're not going to get the same result. This is the exact result that we're looking for here. So let me press play again. You can see the smoke goes inside. Now I stopped the bake at around frame 70 or so, but you can see that this is exactly what we're looking for. The smoke collides and boom, it looks really cool. So now let's go ahead and save this real quick. I'm just going to call this smoke simulation. And then I'll just call it, I don't know, collision, because that's what's happening. All right, we'll go ahead and click save. And really, that's it, right? That's it for the tutorial, but now we have to make this thing look good. So let's go into rendered view, and let's talk about some settings that we're going to add. Very first thing I'm going to add, you guys already know, I'm going to go over to my world properties. I'm just going to add an HDRI to our scene. That way we have something to light our scene. I'll choose this one right here. I just think this one's really nice. It has some really nice lighting to it. Now you'll probably notice our smoke looks quite faint, right? You can see right through it. The problem is the original shader that Blender applies automatically for us is this principled volume shader, but the density is quite low. So let's raise that. Right now it's at 5. I'm gonna set it to about 75. And now you'll see we have some very thick smoke, right? And that's exactly what we're looking for. If you wanted it to be a little bit more transparent, you can knock this back to like 45, right? Now you can see through it just a little bit more, but it's quite thick, right? Now the reason we can't see through it like we could with my initial document right here, I just want to pull this up for you guys. I want to explain real quick. This specific file here, right? That resolution is 350. I had to leave my computer and come back. That's how high quality this was. This took about an hour to process for my computer, and I have a very powerful setup. I have a 3070. So It took about an hour to actually bake this out, right? So what we'll do is maybe we'll bake it out to 200. We'll do some Q&A while we wait for that. But this is going to be your final result at 350, right? That's 350. And I do have an earlier result, and I believe this one's 200. Yeah, so this one was about 200. So maybe we'll bake this one out. You guys can see the result right here. This is about 200, and this looked pretty good. So we'll bake this out as well. All right, let's go into some of the lighting and the setup as well. So with our density at 45, I'll keep it as that for now, and then I think I'll just give this like a nice like light blue color, and we'll talk about some lighting and stuff like that. Now you're going to notice right now, again, this isn't very high quality, the smoke simulation itself, right? This is very low quality. First thing I'm going to do is hide these toruses, and I'm just going to add in, let's see, let's add in a camera. Let's get a nice camera angle on this, and then we'll go from there. Let's go into solid view. I'll just move my camera over here. Also, you'll notice the camera scale is very small. If you need to, you can scale it up. That's just so you can see the camera better in the viewport. I'm also going to raise my camera up, and I'm going to give us a nice little YouTube size here, 1080 by 1920, or reverse that, however you want to think about it. I'll rotate it, and now let's just go ahead and see what we have in rendered view so far. Looks pretty good. I will adjust this value right here. I always do this. This is called the pass part out value. It's basically the area around the camera. I don't want to see that area, right? I only want to see what the camera sees. All right, let's go ahead and adjust that. And that looks good. Okay, let's rebake this real quick and do a quick Q&A while you guys are waiting, and then we're going to go over the rest of the shading. Let's go ahead and go back to solid view. I'm going to adjust this. We're just going to do 200 for this example. It shouldn't take too long. You'll notice that I set the time scale up to 2. Now, if you want this to be even higher quality and you have days to wait, you can adjust this CFL number, which is basically the actual overall quality. I'm going to click bake, and you can see it's going down there. While we wait, guys, because I do want to, I want to show you guys what this is actually going to look like in real time. If you have a question, please drop it in the chat below while we're waiting, and I'll throw this up on the screen so you guys have some eye candy to look at. We'll pull up the 60 frames a second version while we answer questions here. It's beautiful. It looks so good. So I rendered it. So I pulled all the frames into the video editor, and I did a 60 FPS and a 30 FPS because I just wanted to see like the main difference. This is 60 frames a second, and it looks pretty solid. But if you're looking for something more dramatic, 30 frames a second will do it as well. You kind of still get the same result, right? Which is really, really nice. Any questions, go ahead and drop them down below while we're waiting for this to bake. Got a couple comments. People are saying, looks good. Hello from India. Hello, how are you? 1:25 a.m. here. Well, thank you for tuning into the live stream. Much appreciated. Like I said, guys, this is like the effect we're going to get. The next thing we're going to go into is lighting, getting that nice background blur. We're going to add some kind of smoke emitter, like the actual objects on each side. And we'll talk about how to get the smoke to look like the way that it does in terms of like how colorful it is and how that shading works. So you can see right here, though, this is such a cool effect, and there's a lot of things we can do to expand off this effect as well, involving logos, right, and logo reveals and things like that. Greetings from Argentina. Hello, how are you? Welcome to the live stream. All right, let's see where we're at. Let's see how many frames. Okay, we're about 70%. This is great. We're almost there, guys. The noise looks static somehow. Otherwise, it looks very cool. Yep, so that's another thing I'll mention real quick before the bake is done, guys. This is 10 samples, right? So I rendered this out at 4K, 10 samples. It's very low. The reason why is because each frame took about a minute. And to me, that's a long time, at least on my PC. When you're doing volumetrics, it's going to take a very long time to render out a really good frame. This one right here, last thing I'll show you, this is the high-res version, right? This took 5 minutes, and this was 50 samples. You can see the difference, right? You can still see a lot of fuzziness here, but again, it's really tough to not get that noise. I actually don't use a denoiser for this specific setup because I actually think it ruins the render. What are your thoughts on product visualization as a beginner 3D generalist? Should I pursue it? India has a huge market for product viz. I say do it. Go for it. Try it out and see how well you can do with your success rate there. The best advice I can give to people that are trying to create stuff is just create it, right? Don't ask somebody if they can be your client. Just create something for them for free, and eventually they may hire you as a client. Not everyone's going to like that approach, but that's my personal approach. All right, let's see how this looks. We baked out to frame What do we big out to? Frame 100. Okay, so I'll just set this to 100. And you can see this looks really, really nice. Let's go to like the end frame because I want to see. All right, so now you can really see the true detail here, right? You can see how the smoke is really separating and it's starting to like bubble up at the ends there. That's really the effect that we were going for. This is again 200. As you get past that 300 mark, it's really going to take a lot longer. I'm also going to back my camera up a little bit, the actual focal length, because I want to be able to capture all this. All right, now let me show you guys a few tricks on how we can get this to look really, really good. There's a few really simple tricks that are underutilized that we're going to discuss in this tutorial. First of all, I'm going to add a plane to our scene, okay? Now it's up in the center here. I'm going to scale it in solid view so it goes a little quicker, and I'm just going to rotate it on the x-axis. I'm going to push it behind our scene, and I'm just going to make sure it covers the entirety of everything in the camera view. And we're good to go. It really doesn't have to be too big. I'll scale it like that. And this is a really simple trick that I use all the time. People are like, how do you get that cool blurred background? This is how I do it. I go ahead and I click on my plane. I give it a brand new material, and I'll just change our surface type to glass. And just like that, I have an amazing blurred background. Now the roughness is ultimately what's going to change that background. Right now, I actually think this looks really good, and I may just go with this because I think it looks really nice. If you want it to be a little darker, you just change the color of the glass. And you're still going to get that blurred background look because it's a rough glass material. So all the light that's passing through is going to get diffused, kind of like a giant photography diffuser. So I also like to turn off my overlays right here just to see what I really have. This looks really nice, and I'm really happy with this so far. There's a couple more things that we can do to enhance this this render here. A lot of the times what I'll do is I'll actually rotate the HDRI. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how I'll do that right now. I'm just going to head right over to the shading tab here. I'm going to switch this little object panel to world. And you can see now we have all of our nodes down here. This is our HDRI right here. And this is the strength of the HDRI. I'm just going to add some mapping. You guys probably know this trick already. I use this a lot. I'll use the texture coordinate node. If I can spell, there we go. I'll just plug in the generated to the top of this mapping vector, and then I'll plug in our vectors together for HDRI. And then I'll just adjust this Z value right here, and I'll play around with this until I get some lighting that I really like. Let's see. I'm really looking for some harsh edges on this smoke. That doesn't look terrible right there, but I'm really looking for the kind of like what we had already. Let me just go the other way. That's kind of close to what I'm looking for. Honestly, what we had initially is not terrible. If you really want to make this more dramatic, you guys can go over here to your output properties, or sorry, is this output properties? Render properties. Go down to the film look and just bump that up to medium contrast. And I like to raise the exposure a little bit. I just feel like it brings the smoke forward more. So now you're probably asking yourself, well, how do I get this really colorful smoke effect? Well, it's quite simple. Let's go ahead and check out our domain here. Now, did you see how I couldn't see my nodes at first? I just want to point this out. If you ever can't see your nodes, I remember the first time this happened to me, it was so frustrating. I was like, where are the nodes? If you go up to view and you go to frame all, it'll quickly snap you to all of the nodes in the scene. It's just a nice little trick if you get stuck. I've had so many countless frustrating Blender moments, and that was one of them. So thank God I figured out how to do that. All right, so our color here is what we're going to be focused on. I am going to steal the nodes from my old project real quick. So I'm going to go back to our original project. I'm going to go to my shading tab, and you'll notice this is our current setup. I'm just going to click on my domain because that is the color we're going to be changing. And I'm going to show you how simple it is. We're really just using a noise texture and a color ramp. I'm going to go back to here. All right, I'm going to paste these nodes in. This is really the setup, guys. We need a noise texture and a color ramp. I'm going to show you what each one does. If we just plugged in the noise texture, you'll get something like this, right? Which is just a bunch of random noise, and actually that looks pretty cool. But if we throw a color ramp in here, it's going to take all the colors in between blue and pink, and it's going to go ahead and distribute them evenly with that noise texture. And if you want it to be more contrasty, you can drag this pink towards the blue, or vice versa. You can kind of see how I can get like a different effect here. So this is like more contrast, right? Which if you're going for that kind of cotton candy look, that's fine. The further these are spread out, the more the color is sampled between the two swatches. I personally like it more like this. I just think it looks a little bit nicer, right? And if you want more saturation, you can do that in post-processing, or you can go back down to your film style and you can turn this up to very high contrast. And now you have a super, super high contrast smoke, and it just looks really, really nice. So at this point, we can just start really doing whatever we want. And then lastly, I'll go over render settings. Also, if you want to change the noise texture scale here, you can do that. Right now we're at 1. If you set it to like 5, you'll see how everything gets like kind of more detailed, right? But I actually like it the way that we had it before. I think these settings are perfect, so if you want to copy those, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to go back to our layout now, and this is the part where we can start modeling stuff, so we can add something that makes it look like smoke is coming out of another object. In my case, I actually did something really simple on the last one, and I actually just used the same torus and I duplicated it. So I'm going to go ahead and unhide this torus here, and you can see that you can really see the smoke in viewport as well. I'm going to turn my overlays back on. With our torus selected, I'm going to press Shift D and then Y. Now make sure you remove any physics properties from this. I'm going to remove my fluid flow. We don't need that anymore. And then I'm just going to scale this on the Y like that, scale it up a little bit, and I'm going to move it over top of our torus. Now, I want this to be just on the external part of the torus. I want it to look like the smoke is coming out of this object. And I'm just going to pretend this is some sort of like abstract sci-fi canon. You guys can really make it whatever you want. All right, let's hide the original torus. Make sure that your new torus is enabled for rendered view. All right, let's snap to our camera here, and let's go ahead and give this a really nice property. I'm just going to give this like a metallic shader with a really low roughness, and I'm going to shade it smooth, and let's just see what it looks like so far. Not bad. The only problem is you can see the smoke is, I want to say that's the reflection. Let me just double check, make sure that's the reflection. Yep, it is. So you can see this right here is where this smoke is initially going to come out. Now, one issue to address, since we're on the topic, you guys can see this banding right here. Don't worry, we can fix that. We're going to go ahead and head over to our volume settings, and this is in our render properties. And you'll see there's 2 values right here. We have step rate, render, and viewport. These are different, right? The viewport is what we're seeing now. The higher the value, the more pixelated it's going to look. The lower the value, the more detailed it's going to look, but it's going to be a longer render time. So I'll set the viewport to 0.25, and you'll notice there's not, oh, there is still as much banding. All right, hold on, we're going to try this again. We're going to try it in rendered view. It doesn't really seem to want to do much right here, but I promise you, when you render it, it will be less pixelated like that. I've proven this because I did this before with the old render. All right, so we have our kind of device here. I'm going to go back into solid view. All right, I'm going to go to my kind of backhand view here, or Y negative view. Shift D to duplicate, scale it in a little bit, and then I'm just going to bring this out. And I want this to be that LED ring. I had this kind of like LED ring effect on the last one. I'm just going to give this like a solid emission shader, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that now. I'll go ahead and go to materials. I'll delete this material, click on a new material, and then I'll just change my shader type to emission, and I'll give it a value of 10. And this is going to give this kind of like an interesting glow. And I feel like it really fits the theme of like what we're doing. I don't know why, it just kind of came to me on the last one. And again, this is what I chose to do for this specific render. Okay, a couple other things I'll do. I'm just going to add some wires to this. I did this in the last one. Once I'm done, I'm also going to duplicate this to the other side. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to add in an empty. Doesn't really matter how big the empty is. I'll scale it up so I can see it. And I'm going to go ahead and give ourselves a mirror modifier. Let's go to modifiers, generate, and then mirror, which is, where the heck is it? There it is. All right, and then I'll just select my empty for the mirror type, and I'll mirror it across the y-axis. And now we have the exact same thing on the other side. We'll click on our inner torus. Now, there's a really cool trick. Again, I learned a lot of tricks along the way. If you hold shift and click on your other object that already has the modifier, and you do Control L, you can actually copy the modifiers, and look at that. Now we have a duplicate on the other side, which is really nice. All right, let's add in a curve and turn it into a wire. I'll go to Add, Curve. I'll just do a Bezier curve. You can see it's in the middle here. It's kind of small. We're going to scale it up, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the settings over here. This is our data properties. I'm going to go into the geometry area, and then under round bevel, we're going to give this some depth. And you can see just like that, we have a wire. You'll notice how the caps are not filled. Well, we can do that with fill caps. That's fine. You don't really have to do that because we're not going to see the caps. Now, all I need to do is go into edit mode and adjust where these go. Now, in this case, I'll probably just do one off to this side. I'll just make it look like it's kind of touching the surface here. And then all you have to do on the other side is you can rotate this, and if you want to add more, you just press E to extrude it, and now you have more of this wire, and you can mess around with it. Let's see, kind of want to make this flow a little bit better than it did last time. You can also like make this like kind of crazy, like this might not look realistic, but let's just see what it looks like right now. So this one doesn't have a shader right now, but you can see that this is just like a nice curved path that we turned into a wire. Again, you don't have to do this, it has nothing to do with the smoke simulation. I just think it's a cool thing to do. You'll also notice how jaggedy this line is. We can fix that using the resolution presets over here. Right now it's set to 12 by default. I'm gonna pop this up to 50 for the render and the viewport, and now you'll notice how much smoother our wire is, right? I'm also going to give this a shader. Let's just go ahead and give this wire a black BSDF. We'll just make this a black color with a high roughness, maybe a little bit lighter, maybe gray, so we can actually see it on the background. And just like that, you have a wire. And let's just say it went out of the scene, which this one does. We'll just go back into solid view, Shift D, we'll press X, so we can lock to the X axis. Now we have our second wire, and maybe you just want to make it a little bit different than the first wire. So maybe we make it a little bit more droopy here. Maybe this comes in like that, right? Maybe something like that. I think that looks nice, right? And then if you wanted a third wire, you could do that as well. In my case, since I have somewhat of an electronic background, like I like to mess around with electronics, I'm going to duplicate this material. I'll give this one a slightly brighter red material. Wow, it really doesn't want to make the red. There we go. Okay, slight red material. Again, these are just simple materials. There's really nothing crazy here, but it's kind of fun looking, right? It makes it look like it actually has some substance to it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to give these a mirror modifier, and then we should be good to go. I'm going to click on these. Let's see if my shortcut works. It does, and now look, I have wires on both sides. Again, Control L was that shortcut, and that's really it, guys. There's really nothing else I need to do. In the last render, I did give the inner circle a circuit board shader, but I don't think that's really necessary here. Pretty much everything I needed to go over, we went over. And again, I'll just pull up the final result. We'll talk about it. I'll just make sure I didn't miss anything. Here it is right here. That's really it, guys. Once you render this out, you're good to go. I'll go over render settings. That's what we'll go over last. So we'll go over a couple tricks about render settings, and then we'll go ahead and pop into some other stuff about smoke simulations. But again, everything I just went over, that's the tutorial. Like, we have two toruses being pulled in together by a force field. When they collide, we turn the force field off so that they can expand naturally as they would as regular smoke. And this is really it right here. Let's go over some render settings, and then after that, I will we'll move on from here. Again, look how awesome that looks, right? Imagine you can make any colors you want. You can use any HDRI you want. At this point, what I'm going to do is go over some of the render settings that I used on the last project, and I want to talk about some tips and tricks, because I think a lot of people think that you need to wait a really long time for specific frames. That is true with things like smoke simulations, but there's still things we can do to modify, sort of like make Blender work in our favor, right? So let's go ahead and I'll show you what those things are. If you look at the format right here, you can see this says 1920 by 1080, right? That's our resolution, that's our aspect ratio. You'll see this little percentage under here. I don't think anyone realizes this. This actually goes above 100%. I didn't really understand it at first. Basically, it's a multiplier of what you already have. So at 100%, stays the same. But if we make this 200%, we're gonna double our frame and make it twice the width and the height. So by doing that, we have more pixels to work with, and Blender can process more like individually, if that makes sense. At least that's what I found works best for me. Right now, I'm at 300 samples. I can now knock this down to like 10 or 25, and I can still get a pretty decent render. Now, in my case, I'm gonna turn denoising off for this. I don't think it's necessary for a smoke simulation. I actually think it looks better without denoising. I think the denoising hurts. So let's go ahead and render. Let's just see how long this might take. Again, we're at a 4K resolution with 10 samples. It shouldn't take too long. I'm estimating about a minute or 2 minutes. Let's just see. Let's see what happens. I'm also streaming on OBS, so again, Blender's got a lot more to do. I can already see that I made a mistake, and I think that emission might be a little bit too much through the other side, so I might modify that. It's looking like it's going to take about a minute and a half here. Let's see how this does right here. I'll look at the comments while we're waiting. Hello, what are we doing today? We are doing a smoke simulation. Someone said, I hope this is available later. It will be. All live streams are uploaded as regular live uploads. After the fact, they just need to process. It might take a second for them to process. Would it be advantageous to use render region in the output tab instead of pass part out, since it won't be rendering the outside? That could possibly be a good idea. I'll have to try that sometime. Good point. All right, let's see. We have about 6 seconds left. Again, this is a pretty big frame. Also, we wouldn't want these wires hanging here like this. We could change that as well. All right, this is our completed render. So there is a lot of noise, but one of the things that not a lot of people talk about, and I'm going to get bashed for this a little bit in the comments, but I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of noise. In fact, sometimes you want that, especially if you're going for that kind of like film camera look, or you want something to seem grainy and a little bit more authentic. I don't mind a little bit of grain. This right here would probably be too much. Like if this was a client project, I would never allow this much grain to be in that client project, especially when you really zoom in here and you can see that. But for like smoke, you kind of need that grain, right? It kind of makes it look more like smoke, especially as you start to kind of like back away. Again, that's my personal preference. This, again, the samples are too low. If you really wanted to get a really solid render, you might want to start at like 100 and work your way up from there. But this is a trick that I use all the time. It usually works with other materials like metallic materials really well. Smoke, not as much. But yeah, you're going to want a nice system. If you're rendering this out, you're going to want a nice system. Otherwise, you may be waiting around for days. Let's look at I want to look at the last frame here. The second to last is fine. I just want to take this all in real quick. This looks really nice. Wow. It just looks really good. And I think something really cool about smoke simulations is you don't really know what you're going to get until the bake is done. It kind of makes you a little more patient as a 3D artist too. So it makes you appreciate, that computer is doing a lot of work, right? Like I'm not sitting here calculating millions of particles. It does look fuzzy. We'll try one more time just for everybody in the chat. We'll try to bump up the samples. Let's do 100 samples. We'll see what we get. I'm not going to turn on denoising again because I feel like it really destroys the render, but I will do 100 samples for you guys real quick just to see how long it might take on my computer. Again, my computer is juggling a few different things. I have OBS, YouTube open, Notepad, which who knows how much space Notepad's taken up, probably not much. All right, so now look at the estimated time now. It says 22 minutes. Hopefully that gets knocked down in just a second here. Now we're at 19 minutes. Let's see. 17 minutes. Okay. It might actually only take like 15 minutes. Let's see. Okay, now we're about to be below 15 minutes. Let's see what happens here. Still a little bit fuzzy. Again, yes, if you turn on denoising, it won't look fuzzy, but it also won't look like smoke, right? So there's kind of like a sacrificial relationship between the two. You're going to sacrifice your quality if you turn on denoising, but at the same time, you're not going to have that nice blurry background, right? So we're looking at about 12 minutes out here. Already, though, it does look a little bit better. It looks much less fuzzy than it did before. Let me just full screen this for you guys a little bit here. I mean, you can be really, really nitpicky about this. Most people aren't going to be this far zoomed in, right? But this, again, might not be an acceptable amount of noise for most 3D artists that are doing high-quality product visualization, or maybe something for like a chemical company that wants to talk about their product that makes smoke. I don't know. Whatever they're doing, they're probably going to want it to be a little bit higher quality. Usually the more samples is always going to help, but you're also sacrificing time, right? And time is extremely valuable as a 3D artist, which is why a lot of people like me invest into a newer computer that is fast, right? File is very large, yes. How to get rid of the noise. That's always the challenge. Getting rid of the noise is always the challenge. Yep. And I am one of those folks. Yep. So, Rayman Pixar. Do you work for Pixar, Rayman, or are you just a fan of Pixar? That's pretty cool either way. I like the name. Let's see what we have here. It's about 10 minutes out. Again, I'm not going to sit around and wait for this. And this is one of the things where it's like a lot of people are going to be like, well, just throw it to a render farm and you're good to go. Some people don't have that budget, right? Some people don't have that kind of money to do that. So we always try to think, as a Blender artist, how can I make this more efficient for myself as I'm creating my projects? Yeah, honestly, this is not an acceptable amount of noise even now. Even as I zoom out, I mean, this looks a lot better, but look, am I going to sit here and wait 10 minutes per frame for only 100 frames, that's a really long time. That every 6 frames is an hour. That's crazy, right? I don't think so. So, all right, we're gonna X out of that for now. Blender's probably gonna try to crash on me. All right, we're good. Again, I'm super happy with this, guys. Let's talk about logos a little bit. What time is it? 3:21, and we started at 2:45. 15. Okay, so we have 15 or 20 minutes left here. Oh, tile. Oh, you're talking about. I'm sorry. You're talking about tile. Okay, I got you. Yeah. Yeah, the tile size is pretty good, pretty big on that one. I agree. We could probably, and that's something you probably experiment with. All right, so when we're thinking about logos and things like that, we can also talk about how we might be able to do a logo reveal with this. So let's go ahead and I'll show you guys how you might do that. This will be kind of like an addition to, this is an extension of the tutorial that we just did. Same concept, we'll use a smoke simulation. I'll just go ahead and add a cube in here. We'll quickly throw on a quick effect. We'll do our quick smoke again. And if you press play, you know we have our smoke simulation right away, which is really nice. Again, this resolution is not something we're willing to work with here, right? This is something that is going to be a little bit too low. I'll go ahead and go to my domain settings. I will click on replay and change that to all. And let's get a logo in here. I think I have an SVG. I think I have an SVG of the Blender Market logo, soon to be Superhive. Let's see if I can find it here. Downloads. Actually, I can type it in Blender. There it is. Blender Market SVG. And there it is. And let's go ahead and scale this up. Move it out here so we can turn it into a 3D logo. Again, another tutorial in itself. I'm just going to delete the parts that I don't need. There's a few hidden parts in here. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see it on your screen or not. There's like overlapping parts of the SVG. Once you have everything, you'd think that you would right click and click join, right? Which is what we want to do. Sometimes you just don't have that option. I'm not entirely sure why. I'd be curious if any of you know it, but I found a workaround. If you click on each one and you hold shift, same thing, and then you right click, and now I have the join option. Not sure where it is before or why it doesn't work when I box select, but when I join, everything becomes one object, and then I can go into my object data properties and I can properly extrude my mesh like this. I can right click, convert to mesh, and now we have a mesh. And then I'll just set my origin to geometry, and I'll bring that into my simulation zone over here where the rest of everything is, and we're good to go. And now we'll just bring this up and make it a fluid effector. And I'm also going to scrunch down all this other stuff. And the domain and the fluid flow object, I'm going to also bring those up as well. If you can't see, this is what I have so far. The small box is going to be where the smoke comes out. The big box is our domain. This is going to be our effector. Let's add that now. I'll go to my physics properties, click on fluid type effector. Even though this isn't a fluid, it's still going to act as a smoke collision effector. Now for my domain, I'm going to scale this down so that it's barely cutting through the logo like that, right? It's kind of like cutting through the top of it. And the reason why is I want my smoke to form kind of like around the concaves of the logo. Let's click on our smoke object. I'm going to make it about that big. And then I think I'll make this inflow for now just to make sure it's working. And then we'll bump up our resolution to 100. And let's go ahead and bake this out to frame 100. Let's click bake and let's just see if everything's working properly. If it is not, we'll know right away, like on the 20th or 30th frame. All right, it looks like it's working properly. Is it forming around the logo? It looks like it is, and if it's hard to see, go to rendered view, quickly add in an area light, bring it up, scale it, make it like 500, and I like to just bring it off to the side like this. The reason I like to do that is because I can clearly see if it's working properly. I'm also going to adjust the density here. It looks like it is forming around the logo. You can kind of see like the little concave areas. And if we look at a top-down view, actually, if we look at a top-down view, oh look, there's the logo. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and free all. Let's click on 200 for our resolution. I'm going to quickly save this. I'll just save it as nonsense name, and I'll click on bake all, and then let's see what we get here. One of the cool things about this might take a little bit longer than the last one, is you could do this with pretty much any logo. as long as you convert it to, or sorry, if you have an SVG and you convert it to like an extruded mesh, you should be good to go. It'll work with most shapes. As long as you put that effector on there, it will work, right? All right, let me undo this because this bake's going to take too long for the live stream. I'll do 150, and then I will also click on bake again, and let's actually wait this time. We're going to wait. Any questions in the chat, drop them now. We got a total of, what do we got, 70 people. That's a pretty fair amount. That's actually more than like most live streams. Oh, you're a lover of Pixar? That's awesome. Complexity and quality. Ah, okay. Very nice. Any comments in the chat while we're waiting? Or any critique or feedback? That's fine too. Feedback's always welcome. These live streams aren't meant to be perfect. They're more meant to be like go with the flow and just chill. Kind of chill vibes, if that makes sense. All right, we're about 33% here. All right, that means the smoke would have probably risen by now pretty high. I think we can pause it and see what it looks like. To pause the bake, I'm gonna click escape. Blender's gonna be like, yo bro, I wasn't done yet. And there it is. So this is really cool. Let me just raise this up so we can see this a little bit more. So there's your CG or your Blender Market logo. It's pretty cool. You can kind of see the imprint of it here, and you can imagine if we let this go for longer, how interesting this would be. And I know you're probably thinking, well, then why didn't I let the bake go for longer? One, I was kind of eager to see the result, but two, I didn't want to keep you guys waiting too long. I just wanted to show you kind of what this would look like if we let this play out. So let's try something here. Let's, instead of emulating the smoke constantly, let's just do one quick burst of smoke. So I'll just do geometry this time. Instead of inflow, which is just gonna push one smoke, like push up. I don't know if I'm like saying that right, but either way, let's go ahead and bake it out, but let's also scale this a little bit. Make sure it's like that. Again, make sure your logo is intersecting this line, right? Make sure these two are intersecting. Otherwise, this might not work properly in terms of making it look like it's pushing up against a flat wall. All right, so we're gonna bake this out. Now, it should bake quicker because there's less smoke particles, right? The smoke particles are going to rise, and instead of continuing to flow, it should just rise and then just like disperse, revealing the logo. Should. I didn't know about the pause thing. Yeah, so now it's not pausing the bake because then you have to rebake. The only way you can pause a bake is using flip fluids, as far as I'm concerned, unless there's another way in Blender to do this. When you pause a bake in flip fluids, you can resume where you left off. But if you pause a bake here, you can just see what you've baked so far. But if you want to continue baking, I don't think you can do that. I'm pretty sure you cannot do that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I'm almost positive. I've been doing Blender long enough. I think I would know by now if you could resume the bake. Usually it'll say delete bake if you pause it, because it's saying either start all over, bro, right? All or nothing, or that's it. Put a little too much creamer in my coffee. It's too sweet. Anybody ever do that? Just too much creamer. All right, we're at about 88%. We'll let it finish, and as soon as it does finish, hopefully we have some kind of really cool logo here. All right, and I don't know if we're gonna get what I expected. Let's see. Okay, not what I expected, but that's okay. You live and you learn, and a lot of this is a learning process. So let's see. We have the smoke expanding, and then it kind of hits the surface, revealing the logo. And this is not exactly what I was looking for. And the reason why is because I just don't think we had enough smoke to fill the outside of the logo. Too much. Carson can relate. Too much sugar to the coffee is never a good thing. You can kind of see the flattened version of this. Either way, this is a pretty cool like thing. I thought that was pretty interesting. Let's try it at a lower resolution with a bigger smoke, like size of smoke, if that makes sense. Let's go to the top-down view so we can see how big the smoke is compared to the logo. You know what? Let's go ahead and turn this thing into more of like a rounded object. I just did this in edit mode real quick. I just controlled bead to bevel, and then I scrolled in or out to make more vertices, subdivide it. Am I saying this right? Yeah, I beveled it and then I subdivided it while I was beveling it, I guess, to make a smooth bevel. So this should be enough smoke to cover the whole area. And then for our geometry, I'm gonna change it to inflow, but I'm gonna keyframe the inflow, or is it the flow source where it says surface emission. We're gonna do 1.5 up until frame 20. So around frame 20, I'm gonna hit I on my keyboard to insert a keyframe, and then on frame 21, I'll knock this down to 0 so that it stops emitting smoke, right? So it'll emit smoke up until frame 20. All right, let's click on our domain and let's save this, and let's click on Bake All, and then let's cross our fingers and hope that this looks really, really good. I think if you set the cache format to unified, you can resume. Been a long time, and I might be remembering a plugin. That may be correct. I will definitely try that. I've only really used replay and all, but I'll check unified because that would be pretty cool. Won't increasing particles make it work? Yeah, you just did it. LMAO. Yep, and that's exactly the one of the things that no one understands, maybe not no one, but some people don't understand when they ask me about like the work that I do, is that most of the time it's me sitting here messing around with the settings for like hours and hours trying to get something to look right. Like the render that I showed for this tutorial, it took me a while to get it to look like that just because there's so many settings to consider and there's so many different results, and you almost always get a different result when you bake. Even if the settings are like exactly the same, like one little thing might change, which is really strange. Usually it's because of like turbulence force fields and things like that, but most of the time it just takes me hours to get the correct settings. And once I finally do, then you only see that end result. But what you don't see is the hours and hours that I spent baking, rendering, messing with the settings, like turning motion blur on and off, trying the denoiser versus not the denoiser, sample count versus like high sample count versus low sample count. 120 frames at 30 frames a second compared to 60 frames a second, right? There's so many things that I try, and the only reason I get a good result is because I've tried that many things. All right, let's see how this looks. Let's hide this. Rendered view. Ooh, this is a much more interesting result here. Let's play this back. And the smoke's rising, and it makes an imprint on the Blender Market logo. That looks pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. The only difference is the jaggedness, but that jaggedness should be able to be fixed with our settings. So let's throw a camera on top, and let's just see if we can verify that will be true. Let's just go ahead and pop into our new camera here that I just made. We'll just do a quick render. But before we do that, I'm going to go into my volume properties in my render tab, and I will set my render to 0.25, which should make these crispy lines go away. So just remember, these crispy lines, let's hope that they go away. Let's try 25 samples, and we're at 1920 by 1920, which is a wait, what size are we at? Are we at 1920? Yeah, we are. Okay. Oh man, I forgot to remove this guy. Always make sure you check your render settings and check your hierarchy to make sure that no objects are hidden. All right, I'm still seeing the jaggedy lines, which means that there's something I didn't do correctly. So let's X out of this, and let's try setting these both to 0.1 and 0.1. I've had this issue before, and I've solved it with these settings, but then I ran into it again, and I couldn't solve it with these settings. Smoke simulations can be quite tricky. They can be very tricky. That's how everyone learns. Even, I don't know why people think tutorial makers are perfect. The reason that, I'll tell you why they think they're perfect. Because when you see a polished tutorial, there's hours and hours of editing that went into polishing that tutorial so that there were 0 mistakes. But I think that sets a false expectation for creators. You're going to make mistakes. In fact, you should, so that you know what you're doing wrong and you can fix it in the future. Me personally, my creative process is fail, 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 and then fail some more, and then fail, and then right after I'm done failing, then I've failed. And then I win, right? Like no one talks about that, but it's so true. Oh, and then I fail again, and then I win right after I failed. So there's a lot of failing to get to that final win. Also, right here, I just failed, right? So like, this is something that I can't hide because I'm live streaming. If I wanted to take this video and edit down the best parts, I would look like I'm a god at Blender, but I'm not, and neither is anybody else, because odds are they've probably made mistakes when streaming or editing, right? Maybe messing up a word or two. Like, I mean, I'm messing up all my words on my live stream, but I don't care because it's just like, it's just what I do. I love Blender. So I dedicate this time that I have in my day to helping you guys and also just showing you guys cool stuff. All right, so I'm not sure why we're still getting this weird issue here. The only thing I can think of is that the resolution's too low. What resolution did we choose for this? Let me look again, because it might just be too low. 150. I mean, let's try 200. And if it doesn't look good, oh, you know what, let me adjust the time scale to 2 so it happens a little bit quicker and we can see the result quicker. Someone said, for real, experimenting is 99% of my creative process. Could not agree more. Someone said, love that. Yep. Okay, dumb question, but if we increase the particles, how can we get more hard edges in the smoke? That is what I'm trying to solve right now, Mr. Swat Sahu. Someone else says, my first thought was that the voxel size causes these blocky edges. The density has no fall off on the edge of the... Oh, cubic instead of linear interpolation. That's not a bad idea. Huh. We could try. There's a couple different things that we could try for sure. There's another thing I was going to say. Oh, the path, the logo. I guess sometimes the edges of that logo and the collision can affect things, but typically it doesn't. Like the smoke just adapts to whatever it's interacting with or colliding with, so that shouldn't be a problem. Let me just look back real quick on our original render here. I love looking at this one because this is like the prime example of like what I'm trying to get people to be able to achieve, even if they have a crappy PC. But like this right here, I did change those settings that we just changed and there wasn't any issues. But again, this was 350 for the resolution. I've seen people go higher and it is like, imagine, I almost want to go up to like 600 and just wait and just see what the result would be, just to prove that Blender can be on par with some of these other programs. Just finished your 23-part intro course. Really liked it. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, thank you. That's awesome. I guess while we're waiting for this, guys, if you don't mind, I'm just going to quickly shout out that course. Thank you for the friendly reminder. Let's go to cgcookie.com/p/core. This is the core fundamentals of Blender. Just a quick shout out. This isn't an advertisement, but I am a part of this course, so I might as well just quickly talk about it. If you guys are looking to learn more about Blender and sharpen your skills, we have some incredible creators on here, including myself. I teach physics specifically, but you can see that you can learn things like mesh modeling, okay? You can learn about digital sculpting. You can learn about lighting, super important. Lighting, I cannot express how important this is. Materials and shading, also extremely important. Texturing, honestly, these are all important, but I'm just gonna list out a few of my favorites. Animation, kind of what Blender's built for, right? Rigging, pretty hard, but I'm sure this guy breaks it down very nicely for you. And then, oh my gosh, yours truly, physics with Kenny Phases. So yeah, if you're looking to learn more about physics or compositing or any of those other subjects, blender.com/p/core is the place to go. If you already have a CG Cookie account and a subscription, you should be able to immediately access this. If not, you can also buy the individual courses on Blender Market at this time. So thank you for your time, and that was my shout out to CG Cookie's core fundamentals of Blender. All right, let's stop this on 62%, and let's see how it looks. Woo, this looks a lot better, but again, are we gonna get that banding? Let's see. I'm not seeing it as, I see it a little bit, but not nearly as much. Okay, this looks good. Let's try to render it real quick. Let's try to render one frame and see how it is. How much is the course? That would be something I would double check on the website. It should say on the website. It should also say on Blender Market. At this time, I don't have the exact pricing because I think initial pricing may have been lower and it may have went up or may have fluctuated a little bit. So I don't want to give you an exact price at this current moment because at the time of this recording, it may be a different price. And if someone watches this live stream later, I may have the price incorrect. So I just want to make sure that I don't give you any specific price. Course looks great. How long would it take to finish all that? Probably hours. My course specifically I think I have 8 hours of content. I go through every single physics subject there is. Looks like a Pokemon. This does? Yeah, a little bit. We're still getting that weird banding. Let's look into this. Let's solve this problem. We're coming up on 4 minutes before we're gonna be done here, but let me just see something. I want to take a look real quick at this mesh and just make sure there's no like weird edges. It's like a normal mesh. I mean, there's really nothing. I mean, it's not the best topology, but it is what it is. Let's see. It shouldn't have anything to do with the emission. Usually it's the resolution, but I don't know why there would be like weird banding like that. That's really strange. A lot of people run into this issue too. It's like pretty common. Bevel the logo maybe. Yeah, that could help. Usually though, it's not. It usually doesn't have anything to do with that. Let me click on free all real quick. I just want to see something. Resolution 200. Heat, buoyancy, vorticity now. Let me go to the volume settings real quick. Line art settings. Here we go. Volume, multiple importance, linear. Cubic. Let's try cubic. Did someone say change it from cubic? Hold up. Cubic linear filters. Let's try cubic and see step rate. Here we go. Let's try 0.5. All right, let's try that. Maybe that'll be the... Wait, what just happened? Did I just delete everything? Wait a second. Did I just delete the bake? What just happened? Oh no. Well, that's the last time I changed that setting. I do not know. Or did I originally? I did delete the bake. Okay, hold on. I did delete the bake. That's my fault. Let me bake just a couple frames real quick. Whoops. Well, this is embarrassing. And this is exactly why nobody wants to be a YouTuber. Luckily, we've already got our main tutorial down, so we're good to go. I forgot that I freed the bake, and I thought that the bake decided to free itself. So that was a big fail. All right, here we go. Really, the main goal right now is to get rid of those boxes because they're gonna drive me. That's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. Like other people are like, man, I need a new job or this or that, or like my girl's mad at me, whatever. Me, I'm like, why can't I get rid of these boxes on Blender? And what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? All right, let's go back to the settings again. Let's change this to cubic, and let's do that first. And if that doesn't work, that looked like it helped actually already. So let's see. If that doesn't work, we'll do the step rate. Live streams are though, no worries. Yeah, and that's the thing is like live streams are, the whole point of them is like you're live, like you are yourself. You're not trying to be someone you're not. You can't edit anything. Like it's straight up live. Okay, I actually think that helped a lot, changing it to cubic. So maybe that'll be another pointer I'll add in here to the tutorial. It's still a little bit boxy, but I think that's just the resolution at this point. Let's try messing with the step rate next, which is right here under cubic. And if that doesn't help, then I'm just going to quit out of Blender, never use Blender again, probably. Kidding. All right, let's try to knock this down from 1 to 0.5. All right, let's do something more significant. Maybe that's not enough. We'll do 0.25. Also, I'm going to switch this back over to solid view because it'll help Blender a little bit. So it doesn't have to render the viewport and the render at the same time. I think I read that on a tips and tricks once. Someone said, minimize Blender, also make sure in solid view in the viewport, and your renders will go by like 10 times faster. So we'll see. Now, I have a good feeling about this one because it's taking a little bit longer already. That tells me that that step rate might be helping things. So let's see. It's going to take 7 minutes for one frame. That's outrageous. It's instantly better. Yeah, I do think that helped. It's weird because there's really like there is a manual for Blender and there's documentation, but there's no like very clear indication that that is always going to solve your problem. Like so that's why the experimentative process is so important. I really don't think by the names alone linear should be the correct one. There's got to have been something else. And it could be that step rate, but I just don't know. It's still a little bit choppy. Is there a way to convert the logo into a VDB SDF and subtract it from the simulation? Having an outwards gradient that would fix the issue with increasing the resolution. Does look better, but yeah, I know. It doesn't look great. Let's try one more thing. I'm going to go to my physics properties, free the simulation, bump this up to 200. I'm going to click bake, and let's see if that helps. Luckily, our simulation is going like quick enough where we'll be able to find these results quickly. Let's see. 74 people that are interested in smoke simulations. Now, for those of you who have been very active in the chat, I would appreciate it. If you guys want, I can push this live stream a little bit further out. We can do like maybe 15-20 minutes more. We can do like a really short, concise tutorial after this. If there's any... Joe Fabricator, how are you, my friend? If there's any other topics you want me to quickly cover, I can cover those. I'm always working on new content. Like I said, I've been really busy, but I've had a chance to like do this lately, which has been really nice because I really did miss Blender a lot. And I'd like to think that Blender also missed me, but who knows? All right, we're about 20% here. Let's press escape. All right, again, this is 200 resolution. I just want to look. I want to see what it looks like in the viewport too. Let's just see for a second. Oh, snap. I was not trying to play that. Here we go. Blender is really going slow right now. Let's switch back to solid view. All right. Oh my God. What in the world is going on? Yo, Blender is gonna irritate me today. What? Oh, wait. I'm stupid. It was hidden. Okay, let's try this again. It was not hidden. Where's my smoke? Am I tripping? What the heck am I doing wrong now? This is like such a Blender. This is such a Blender thing. Like, what did I do? Where is my, where is everything? What? There it is. Okay. I thought I was going crazy for a second there. All right, let's see how this one turns out. I was like actually about to be like, okay, like I definitely put too much creamer in my coffee because I'm usually pretty good with Blender and I usually can figure out what's going on. And for a second there, I was like, what is happening here? This looks nice. I think. What do you guys think? I mean, so resolution's higher, usually a good fix. Step rate is low, and we changed it from linear to cubic. I feel like that helped a lot. It's hard to tell here because it hasn't touched the logo yet at this point, but I do think it looks good. Eevee still needs more love. Fellow Joe will go by Joey. Yeah, sure, man. Go ahead. Did you just do a smoke sim with the force behind it? No, this smoke's just rising up, and it's going to hit the top of the domain. This looks good, though. I mean, we're at 9 seconds left. Oh, no, it's going to denoise. I didn't turn the denoiser off. All right, look at it now. Look at it now. It's ruined. It's ruined. So, you say you want to turn your denoiser on. Again, this is personal preference. Congratulations. You've just ruined, you've soiled it. You've ruined your smoke simulation, and this is what you get. Now, it doesn't look terrible, and if you're really looking for that, like, smooth, smoky look, I guess this could work, but I am just, like, I'm not happy with this. Like, I'm just, I don't know. I feel like denoiser is, like, the greatest and the worst in the world. Like, I hate it and I love it. In certain circumstances, it works really well, and then in circumstances like this, it's just not going to fly for me. And I don't want to point you guys in the right direction and say, yeah, use denoiser. Like, no, don't. Because this is what you're going to get, at least with the smoke simulation. With other things, it probably will work fine. But with this, not going to happen. All right, let's see. How many frames did we even get to there? It wasn't trying to render anything, and I'm worried that I'm not getting the result I'm looking for because it didn't render out far enough. I want to make sure that it hit the logo here. Okay, I feel like it was starting to hit the logo here. Let's try to render this frame. I just want to see something. Fair enough. It went from blurry to way blurrier. Yep. Too smooth. Doing well, Kenny. Awesome, Joe. Happy to hear that, man. Okay, this is it. Okay, so this answers my question. You can see that it has hit the logo here, and normally right here, you would have blockiness. I'm not seeing that blockiness here, which tells me that we're okay. Resolution's high enough, because what I'm trying to do for you guys, and for me too, is just develop a formula for success so that you guys I sound like a motivational speaker. I'm going to develop a formula for success, but really there's like formulas to this stuff. Like as long as you have your settings here, here, and here, this should look like this. That like it is repeatable, so you guys can repeat these settings too, and you can get a good result. The only difference here is you just need to raise your sample count, but you're going to be waiting around all day for your frames to come back because, well, it's going to take forever, even on my computer. Although I am streaming like an HD video through the web, so maybe that's kind of why. Yeah, it does hit the logo better. Again, I knew it wasn't the logo. I knew it had something to do with the way that Blender handles the smoke particles, or like the smoke principled volume, whatever it's called. So I knew that that was what it was. Following along, only the resolution divisions has seemed to help those jaggedy edges. You'd think it could sort of anti-alias the collider voxels somehow prior to simulating against them. Yeah, almost like a smooth modifier. You would think that that's possible, right? Baking isn't the same every time, right? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's not. I feel like I've gotten different results baking, especially with particle simulations. I think there's an element of randomness that's integrated into particle simulations with the seed. I'm sure you guys have seen the seed, with kind of like how Minecraft has a seed and it's the way it generates the world. Same thing with physics. I think there's just random variables that can be changed in real life. So I think they're integrated into Blender as well. Again, oh my God, the denoiser. Look at that. Like it was actually looking pretty decent, and then the denoiser hit, and now look at what this looks like. Guys, I can't do it anymore with this denoiser. We're done. Denoiser, you're fired. All right, this came out nicely. Let's do a quick recap, regroup here, and see if we can knock out one more quick guide. Let me just make sure I am able to do that. I don't know if anyone from CG Cookie is watching, but if they are, if they could give me the go-ahead to just do one more quick walkthrough, we'll do another quick walkthrough together. And while we're waiting, I'm going to quickly turn my heater off here. Hold on, guys. 1 minute here. My heater's like making my room very hot. There we go. Okay. And not to mention my computer is making my room hot as well. So, okay, we're good to go. It just turn it off at this point. What's normally happens to the density fades to 0 with a collision. You either have the smoke or no smoke. Yep. Since we're voxelizing for accurate density along the collider, if the voxel is only halved, it should be 0.5 density instead of picking 0 or 1. It looks like you guys have like looked into this more than I have. That's for sure. All right, let's go ahead and create a new project. I'll give you guys a couple of options here for like what we can go over. Also, these are the settings that I used. If you want to copy those over real quick, just leave them on the screen for a couple seconds if you want to take a quick screenshot there. Okay. All right, let's do like 3 options and then we'll do a quick vote. How's that sound, guys? How about shaders? We could just talk about shaders. We could do like one more fun physics thing, or we could do geometry nodes. None of these am I an expert in, but here's your 3 options. Vote in the chat. Would you like 1? Would you like 2? Or 3? I feel like I'm at the doctors. You guys ever been to the eye doctors and they're like, they like switch the lens and they're like, how about now? And 1, 2, and they like switch the lenses around. And I'm always like, half the time I think they're messing with me because the lenses are so similar that I can't even barely distinguish between the two. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Would I make a good eye doctor? All right, geometry nodes. We have 1 vote for geometry nodes. That is 1. There we go. I just finished my bachelor thesis about fluids in Houdini. 70% of the calculations are grid-based. Oh, snap. That is 2 votes for geometry nodes. Houdini, yeah, I would love to learn Houdini one day. The only problem I have with Houdini is just the fact that it costs money. And I know that's me being like super unfair because like you have to pay for certain programs, but like I can't get over how Blender's free. There's so much you can do with it and it's free. Hasselhoff Congo on the completion. Wait, what? Oh, congrats. Nice. 3. Okay, we have 3 people that are interested in geometry nodes. That many people want to learn about geometry nodes? Okay. It's funny because I almost wish you guys didn't pick that because it's not my best topic, but I do have, I'll tell you what, I'll go over one of the shaders or one of the add-ons that I created and we'll break down kind of like how I did it. Kind of off topic, but I've been working on my logo forever and I was using 3.4, but I was dealing with a 1 pixel wide emission issue. Any tips on this? I want to redo the logo. I'd have to know more. I'd have to know more about it. All right, at this point, I think enough people voted for geometry nodes that we're going to go ahead and do geometry nodes. All right, but look, those are some good stats. That's some good participation there. All right, we'll go over some geometry node stuff real quick. And then after that, I am going to probably call it on this live stream. All right, let me pull up. I have to pull up my document real quick because I want to go over, I think it's the ArcViz shader. Yep, this is the one. So this is so a while back I had an idea and what I wanted to create, and this is all geometry nodes based. I wanted to create basically a shader or like a way to visualize like perspective lines. This is really similar to my blueprint shader, but I utilized Blender to do this with geometry nodes. And so I thought to myself, like, how am I going to do this? And I kind of, when I have an idea, not to get too boring on you, but like what goes on in my brain is I'll start to construct it in my brain before I ever touch the computer. And then as soon as I get on the computer, I have an idea of like where to start. So that's normally how I come up with my ideas. And yeah, so I had this idea and I wanted to create a blueprint shader. Sorry, not a blueprint shader, like draft lines. Like for example, if you type in architectural draft lines and you go to images, yeah, this is exactly what I was trying to create, something like this right here, where you get these nice perspective lines and you can add them to any structure you want, right? And you can kind of make it look like a drawing. So what I did is I created this and I just want to show you guys kind of like how this works. Right now we're in cycles. I forget if this works in Eevee or not. I feel like it does. It's a little bit weird in Eevee. All right, it's a little weird in Eevee, but it does work. I didn't even know. I think I knew this worked in Eevee. I mean, I did create this, but I didn't remember. So node setup. Wow, I did not remember it being this many nodes either, but what it is. Okay, so for the node setup for geometry nodes, I just want to go over, because now that I know more about geometry nodes, we'll try to recreate this together and I'll show you how I would go about recreating this. So as you can see, this is the setup for what's happening here. Now I'll just quickly go over the shader. If I click on my object on the right here, you can see I have my modifiers panel. There's a bunch of things I can mess with for this object. For example, the color of the object. I can make it any color I want. Let's make it yellow, right? I can also adjust the opacity of like the wireframe itself. You can see that I can adjust that. I can adjust the thickness of the wireframe. I don't know if you guys can see the wireframe coming in there. And I can adjust the opacity of the object. So let's say I don't want the object to show at all. Also, I'm going to adjust this a little bit. Let's say I want the object to not show at all, but I want to see the wireframe of everything, right? A lot of this is shader nodes, but some of this is also like geometry nodes. And like I said, like there's a lot going on behind the scenes here, but I want to show you a lot of this. Took me like forever. Like this was probably my hardest project. I have the ability to turn off the x-axis, the y-axis, and I could just keep the z-axis. So those lines that are extending out are instances that I've created using geometry nodes. And you can see I can turn them on and off. Maybe I only want the X and the Y. Well, that looks really good. Well, maybe I want to change the line length. I can hold shift and change that here. I can extend it way, way out like that. So there's a lot of ways you can customize all of this. Maybe you want to have the line opacity be less. You can also adjust that here. You want it to be very faint, you can do that. If you would like the density of the lines to be less, you can also change that as well. If you want them to be random, you can change that as well. There's a lot of different things that you can adjust here. Oh, and also, of course, you can adjust the color of the lines themselves. So let's go over, if I had to reverse engineer this, how I would do it. Because I'm not going to look at my nodes because that's cheating, right? I already know I made this. I probably sat down one day for like 8 to 10 hours to create this, and then I slept on it. I had a lot of issues I needed to fix. I also, whenever I'm about to go to bed, I actually write down the things that I want to fix the next day, and I'll fix them the next. I don't know if you guys are like this at all, and this might be getting too like into psychology of like how to create things, but a lot of the times I will sleep on a problem and I'll try to solve it the next day, and sometimes I'll just wake up with the solution. I don't know how, I just do. Because sometimes you have to just like give yourself a break and try your best to start over, right? It's just kind of how things work. Okay, so let's go over how would we add lines to a cube. Let's just go over the simplicities of it. Let's go over to geometry nodes. We'll create a new geometry node setup. If you guys don't already know, you can do like instance on points. So I'll just convert this to points real quick. We'll do mesh to points. We'll go ahead and pop that in here. And now we have 4 points, one for every vertice. Now, if I was to tab into edit mode, I just want to show you this so you understand how this works. And I click on the top face and I extrude it and I scale it. Let's just pretend like this is a roof of a house. I scale this in. Now you can see that we have more points, right? Which is exactly what we want. We want Blender to recognize these points, okay, so that we can do something with them. Now, in my case, I want to instance onto those points, okay? And now I have to decide what is my instance going to be. Now, this is where you have to decide, do you want everything to be completely based in Blender, or do you want there to be some external objects? I can instance an external object. Let's say I had another cube, right? This is really cool. If you click on this cube and you drag it down here, you can actually drag the object info right here, and then you can pop this into the instance, and now you have it right there. But the only problem is these instances are really big, and I don't want to use a cube. I want to use something really, really basic. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and add in a plane. I'll just add in a mesh plane. I'll hide it, and then I'll just go back to my original cube, drag my plane into here. I'll go to instance, and now it's hard to tell, but there is an instance on all of these. If I want to just quickly show you, I can do transform, or now what is it? Elements, scale elements real quick, and I'll just scale this down a little bit. So now you can see on every instance, we have a plane, which is great. This is a good start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this plane scrunched down and stretch it to make it look like a line, because it's going to be our draft line, which is basically how I created this before. All right, so for our draft lines, right now we scaled everything properly, which is good, but we need to scale, we need to stretch it more. So for these instances, I'm going to say transform instance, or scale instances right here. I'm going to pop that in here. And now this is the part where we get to scale it down. So let's go ahead and scale it down this way. And then look, we can scale it the Y as well. So look at that. How cool is that? Now here's the fun part, right? Now what we get to do is we get to make it go the other. So this is traveling in the Y direction. Now I need to flip it, and I need to make some that go in the X direction, and I need to flip it again, and I need to make it go up and down. Is everybody following along? So pretend that we have this. We're going to continue to duplicate this over and over again. Here is where join geometry comes in. Thank you, Join Geometry, for joining our party today. We'll go ahead and pop you in right there. And then what we're going to do is we are going to duplicate this scale instances. I'm going to drag our instances over to this. Now watch this. I'm going to rejoin all these. So now we have 2 scaled versions. This time though, I'm going to make this one, and I'm going to scale it. Oopsies. I'm going to scale it very slow this way. So look, now I have the X is 1, and then our scaled version for the Y is smaller. So now we have both our X and our Y. Now we just need our Z. The only thing is we need to rotate it to get the Z. So I will duplicate our scale instances one more time. I'll pop this up here. I'll join our last instance. And now these 3 boxes, these 3 scaled instances are going to be the 3 versions that we just created. The only difference is I have to rotate these instances instead of scale them. So I'll just do rotate instances. We'll just pop this right here. The scale one doesn't really matter. I just need to rotate this way on the Y, 90 degrees. And now I have basically a cross section on each version. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not going too fast. And now what's great about this is now that we have the geometry joined, we can scale all of these all at once, or we can connect a value node to the scale here and separate the X, Y, and Z, and then we can basically scale each individual value as we need to. Like right now, let's say that this X value wasn't long enough. Well, I need to scale that. Well, how do I do that? Well, I can simply adjust the scale right here. But you can see that this right here is only going to give us these 3 values, but they're not separated. So we would need to separate them with a separate XYZ, combine XYZ. It can get really tricky, but there's a way to do it. So I'll show you how we would do that. Let's type in XYZ. So right here, what are our values? 5, we'll just do 5.03 and then 1. Now, if I connect this to my scale, we should be good to go. Now we can control them individually. So if I want to control the length, now I can make a group input that controls just the X. So this is how we build things in Blender, right, to create our own shaders. Does that make sense? So right here, these 3 values, the user doesn't need to know what these are doing. We know what they're doing. We know that they control the X value of our object, our instance object, and all we have to do is connect this to a group input, and I'll show you how to do that because I want you guys to succeed. Group, if I can spell group correctly, we'll be able to do a group input. Here we go, group input, and I want the specific element to be the X, so I'll add this in here. And now look, on the right-hand side, right here, oopsies, right here, everybody see this X? Look, if I click and drag that, I can now customize my geometry nodes project. How awesome is that? Now we can fully customize it. And then you know what? I also want to be able to adjust our first instances. Let me scale this out a little bit. I want to be able to adjust these instances down here as well. But this time I want to flip my values. I want this to be here, and I want to control the Y. And I think I did something wrong. Wait, hold on. X is that 2.5. Just make sure. Yep, there we go. Okay, so now I can control the Y scale, right? Or I can scale it so far down that you can't see it, okay? And then after that, we can do the same thing with the Y. Is anybody else like, oh, this is so cool? Or you guys, am I going too fast? Comment down below. Let me know if I'm going too fast. I can slow it down. I can dumb this down as much as you need to, or I can go so fast that you can't even follow it. Or maybe I can't even follow it. I've gone so fast that I don't even know what I'm doing. Like when I look back on those other nodes, I don't know if I could even dissect them. But as you can see, we're starting to get this together. Now, here's where the magic comes into play. You probably like, well, Kenny, where's the cube, dude? The cube is gone. Well, check this out. Our cube is showing in the viewport, right? However, we need to rejoin it with our geometry. So where we have this little join geometry, we click on our initial object, which is, where is it? Group input, or geometry in the group input, and we join it right here. And now we have our house and we have our lines. Now, the trickiest part of this for me with the grid line, or with, oh my gosh, draft lines, you'll notice these 2 points up here, right? If we look at this in wireframe mode, well, we have lines going up and down, right? Which is not okay because we want the lines to follow along this angle. This was the trickiest thing for me to figure out. It took me forever, but when I finally figured out how to do it, I was like mind blown about how it was done. It had something to do with rotating to Euler or something like that. But what's really cool is now what we can do is we can just save this real quick. I'll just save this as draft lines live recreation real quick. Okay, there we go. And then what's cool is if we go into render view, now we can like actually make this look like lines, right? So let's do that. Let's just, let's make the background look white. We'll give our house just like a regular gray color. And then you'll notice that there's no material assigned for our actual like lines, but we can easily assign a material to that. I'll just add in a sphere real quick. And let's just, for example, make these green. So I'm going to make a new material that looks green. I'm going to go back here. And all I have to do is I have to make sure that I use the set material, set material. And then I'll just click this green. But oh no, it made our house green too. Well, this is where join geometry is going to come into play again. We're going to take join geometry. We're going to bring it right here. We're going to unplug the bottom socket, and we're going to plug it back in. So that way, our geometry isn't joined until the end, and all of these green lines are going to be completely separate and contained with that green outline, and then our house can be whatever we want it to be. Or then, well, here's where it gets crazy, right? Maybe we want to set the material of the house to something that's red. Well, let's duplicate this material. Let's make something that's red. Let's go back to the house, and I'll just make it red. And just like that, we're setting the material before we rejoin the geometry. And now we have the ability to individually control the material within geometry nodes. What? That's crazy, right? And what's really fun about this is I really don't know anything about geometry nodes. Almost every single time when I'm trying to build something, I just look it up. And if I don't know how to do it, I ask ChatGPT, or I'll look up on forums like how to do it. But now what we can do is we can go into geometry nodes. I can adjust the X and the Y right here, right? See how I can adjust that? And then if I really want to, I go back to my sphere and I'm like, you know what? I want these draft lines to be black, like as if this thing was drawn. And I really don't want this to be red. I want this to be gray. So let's make this gray, right? And now we kind of have something that looks like a drawing. Now, here is where we get into like shading and stuff. I can't even believe I've gone this far. This is where we get into shading. So let's say I go into shading tab and I want to click on this sphere. So whatever this house will be the same as the sphere. Maybe I want this to have a wireframe. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Let's give this a wireframe. And just like that, we have a wireframe. We can also adjust it with a color ramp. And we're good to go. We'll just flip these around. We'll go ahead and flip the color ramp. And now you can see that our wireframe, we have black where the edges are, and then we have white for the rest, and then you can adjust the size right here. So if you want the size of the wireframe to be like that, you can easily do that. And you're probably thinking, yeah, that's cool and all, Kenny, but I don't want my users to have to go back and forth between the shading tab and the geometry nodes tab. Don't worry, there's a way to adjust that. I will show you. There's something called the attribute. Is it attribute? Yeah, attribute node. If we go ahead and click on attribute and we give this a new attribute, I'll just call it wireframe, or I'll just call it W2. Nah, that sounds too much like taxes. We'll do, let's just say border. We'll go ahead and plug the face, or we'll plug the vector into the size. But don't worry, we're going to pull this up in geometry nodes. So we have our attribute. Let's go back to geometry nodes. Now we need to do attribute named attribute, or no, I'm sorry, stored, I think it's stored name attribute, type in border, and then we have to, see if I remember how to do this. I got to go back to my old example because I don't remember exactly how to do this. Hold on. Stored name attribute. There it is. Okay, stored name attribute, and that's going to be color, point, and then we type it in, set material. Okay. I'm taking a mental picture, color and point, and then the name of the thing. Okay, got it. All right, we'll go back into recreation, color, point, name. All right, so we'll change this to color, point, name is going to be border. There it is right there. And then we should be able to plug this in right here. And it didn't work. Now, hold on. Let me just check something. Color, point. Oh, that's the wrong material. Is it this material? Hold on. No. I'm trying to recall. Oh, this is the wrong thing. I have to plug it in right here. There we go. Okay, so now what we have to do is the value. We don't want point. We want color, point. No, we want, I want to say, if I remember correctly, look, we can adjust the thickness with this. The only problem is we want it to be like a value so we can adjust the frame. But notice how now we can actually adjust the wireframe, which is part of the shader, but it's in geometry nodes. So these two things are connected with the store attribute node. I just have to remember what I did wrong here because I am blanking on how I did this in the first place. Let's try that. I'm going to have to go back and forth to make sure I remember how to do this. I want to say it is color. Did I say vector? Oh, there we go. All right, that works. All right, so whatever, vector, doesn't matter. Now you can see right here, look at that. See how I can change that? Now, let's say you wanted to change the color. This is where it gets even more complex. See if you guys can follow along. I'm going to go back to the shading tab. This time, in my material, right here, right now we're working with the color. If I wanted to change like the actual color of it, what I would do is I would do hue saturation value. And then let's just make this, for the purposes of this tutorial, let's just make this red. Now I can change the hue, right? See how I can change the hue right here? I'll just grab another attribute. This time I'm going to change it color or border dash color. And then I'll plug this into the hue. I'm sorry, I'll plug in the FAC into the hue. And now if we go back into geometry nodes, click on this, duplicate our stored attribute, and then border dash color. It usually doesn't pop up. I should be able to adjust it right here. Does everybody see how I'm adjusting it now in geometry nodes? Now we have to take the group output and then plug into the stored name attribute. I should do like a whole course on just this because I know enough to teach it, but I don't know it like as well as some other people know it. Now, here's the cool part. I can duplicate the group input because maybe I don't want to have to drag a line from all the way up here, right? I want to keep all this down here. And if you really want to get fancy with it, you can Control G. Oops, not Control G. I'm sorry. You can right click. How do you make a frame? I forget. Add layout frame. There it is. So we can make a frame. I'll just like expand this frame, drag these into the frame, and now all this is what controls the wireframe color. So I could like go over here and I could name this, I don't know, wireframe color. Boom. And then all I have to do is for my group input, I want to control the color of the wireframe right here. And that should give me, I need to separate X, Y, and Z. Separate X, Y, Z. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I want, oh, and then I have to recombine it. So silly. There we go. Okay, now if I want to change the X, I should be able to do that. Is that going to let me? Oh, I'm in the wrong area. There we go. There we go. So now where this X is, look, I can change the hue of the wireframe. And you're probably thinking, well, X doesn't make any sense. That's okay. We can go to our group tab here. I could double click and say color of wireframe or wireframe color, whatever you want to name it. But it's pretty simple because now you can like go through and change all these things. Oh, you know what? I really want to also change the stored name attribute. This is the size of the wireframe. We just want to control the X. And now we should be able to change it right here. Look at that. See the wireframe? We can control it right here. And that is going to be Y, but we're going to call it, wait, is that the right one? No, that's the second X. Hold on. This is getting confusing because there's a lot going on here. This one's going to be size of wireframe. Also, if you ever need to get rid of one of these slots, you just click on it, because I don't need all these here. I don't need Y. I'm going to delete that. I don't need value. I'm going to delete that. Color of wireframe. Oopsies. I did need, oh, is color of wireframe working? No, it's not. Oopsies. Color of wireframe is this one. We can delete X. There we go. All right, now we should be able to adjust the color of the wireframe, the size of the wireframe, and then I accidentally deleted all the other things that I actually did need. So let me undo that real quick because I realized they're plugged in somewhere else. So let me undo that, and we're good to go. Okay, I just have to rename a couple things. This looks good though. The only other thing I'd do is probably like just right now I'd change this value. Where is it? Where is our wireframe color? Color of wireframe. Oh, that's the size. I'm getting mixed up with what's what, but that's the wireframe. Where's the wireframe color? I gotta duplicate this. Just make sure of something here. View, and then we'll do, I gotta turn my overlays back on. I'm getting mixed up here. Where is my other tool? Set material. We're gonna want to make sure that is this one here. Hold up. I just had like, my brain just like stopped for a second because I was thinking way too hard about these nodes. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy with the amount of like geometry node stuff that we went over. The most important connection to make here is that the color of things can be adjusted in geometry nodes using the stored attribute value. Sorry, the attribute value in shading nodes directly connects to the stored attribute value right here. And then you just have to make sure that you select the proper material, and you have to make sure that you're like going to be able to adjust it with the group input. So this is what we've just created, but like this is pretty cool. Let me make the background like a little bit darker so you can really see the lines. There we go. Actually, let me just make it, I'll make it slightly blue. These things don't want to work. There we go. All right. It's really hard to see those like lines, but they are there. And that's kind of where you start. And then you start to run into issues like, how do I make the lines follow the edge of the house, right? Late for this now. On the fluid jaggedness, I found to set the effector thickness to at least 0.1 combined with cubic filtering makes the edges perfectly smooth on my test. Nice. That's awesome. Cool. All right. Yeah, W2 is a US tax file. All right, guys, what I'm going to do is open up the floor for questions real quick. I'm going to not save this because I know how to recreate this. And let's just go ahead and open up the floor for any questions. This, again, was kind of like our final result. I'll just pull up the downloads, and I'll pull this up. This was our final result for what we did learn initially today. Other than that, we went over some fun stuff with geometry nodes. I think this was another successful live stream, and I think this is actually one of my most viewed live streams, which is great. Well, CG Cookie's most viewed live stream. Again, if you want to learn more about this kind of stuff, go check out cgcookie.com/p/core. That, again, that's cgcookie.com/p/core. That's the core fundamentals of Blender. You can unlock the core of Blender, elevate your craft, and most importantly, you can learn more about physics, which is what I teach, if you can see right here. Let's go ahead and just click on my page real quick. I'll just give myself a quick shout out. These are all the things you'd learn in this video. And as you scroll through, you'll notice some of the fun projects that we work on. They are quite fun. Cloth physics, can't go wrong. Smoke physics, talked about a little bit of that today. Particle systems, dynamic paint, force fields, tips, tricks, and troubleshooting. Very fun. This is a fun little course. Sometimes I even go back to it if I forget how to do something. No matter how well you think you know something, you can always go back and learn more. This is the first time of these I've joined for now. How often do these live shows happen? It depends on how busy my schedule is. I try, like lately I've been doing a lot of them just because it's been fun. But I'd like to ideally do at least one a week, if possible. But especially like when I can find a way to create a result like this, I always like am eager to push this out and teach people because I just think it's so much fun and anyone can make this for free. Like there is no, I didn't have to buy anything for this. The only thing I bought for this was my computer. And if you already have a computer, then you don't have to buy anything. You just download Blender and you have it. There might even be people watching this that don't even have Blender or they don't even have a computer. They might be watching this on their phone. And like they're like, one day I'm going to buy an amazing computer and create these cool animations with Blender. And you can refer back to this tutorial on how to do that. Someone's really really looking to use Houdini here. Better to leave the smoke physics to Houdini. Yeah, look, I have nothing against Houdini. I love that there's so many different programs for creative professionals. Me personally, I just like Blender because it's free and I feel like it's just so easy to use. Whereas, no offense to Houdini, I do think Houdini has a bit of a learning curve and I haven't really got to try that out because I'm not willing to spend thousands of dollars on another program. That's me personally. Other people have different budget. Me, I just like love creating these tutorials, and that's why I do that. I'm a 2D artist. I was watching this because I want to learn 3D soon too. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I will always continue, and you guys can definitely follow me on Instagram if you want to learn more about like what I do. I do have a couple of these posted up on Instagram. The cool thing about this kind of stuff is like it takes a long time, but the result is like ultimately worth it in my book. So yeah. Watching on a choppy laptop crashes in Eevee rendering. Oh no. I'm sorry. Really sorry to hear that. That stinks. You could try a render farm, or you can start saving up for another computer. I realize that like me saying that it's not always achievable for everybody, or like some people can't afford it. I totally realize that. I've been fortunate enough to make some money with my client projects, so I've used that money to buy my like dream setup. And it's kind of paid for itself over time, but it's not like not everybody's going to be able to get a setup like this. And honestly, this thing's actually already outdated. Um, I think I spent like $2,000 on it. But at the time, that was a lot of money. Now it's like, that's like, that's like nothing. Like you're spending at least $2,000, if not 2,000 on just like peripherals and monitor. And then the computer, some people want to build it, some people want it pre-built. It just depends on like what your preference is. I built mine. It took me like 8 hours to build the stupid thing because I had no idea what I was doing. I still really don't. Like if I had to go back and do it again, I probably couldn't do it. But it was totally worth it. Like I'm looking down at my computer right now, and it's just beautiful, and it's served me well, and it continues to serve me well. And knock on wood, it will be here for years to come. So money, money, money. Yep. Yeah, you need. Unfortunately, sometimes you need money for stuff like this, but Blender's free, so that's nice. So you save money on the program. Change my style for the time being. Focused on static renders until I have a decent setup. Yeah, and that's the thing is like you could still do this stuff and just maybe make like a frame or two. But the knowledge is always going to be there. So like these videos are always going to be there to help you guys, and they're uploaded right once they're online, and you can access them at any time completely for free. Might have to watch an ad first, but other than that, they're there. You need money to earn money. Yeah, yeah, you do. But the hardest part for most people is like where to start because you still need that initial source of income. Like some people may start with absolutely nothing. So how do you get that first client, right? And that's why Blender is so great is because Blender's free, it allows you to like get right into the market with zero barrier to entry unless you really don't have a computer. If you don't have a computer, that's a setback. But eventually you can save and save and save and then buy your dream setup. And I remember when I first plugged this computer in, it almost didn't even turn on. But then once it did, I ran the Blender benchmark through the computer just to see, and I was just flabbergasted at how quickly it could render that BMW. It was the BMW file. It was just incredible. It was just incredible. Nothing else to it. Flip Fluids, Emergen. Flip Fluids is great. I have Flip Fluids. Emergen, I've never used it, but I hear good things. How can I make smoke in water? Like if you mix milk and water, you can get smoke type of effect. How can I achieve that in Blender? Like an ink drop, that would be an ink drop would be tough. Or like, like if you poured coffee creamer into coffee, like getting that type of effect. I don't know. I'd have to experiment with that, right? But I would imagine you can use smoke to do that. This is kind of like a cloudy type of like liquid drop effect, right? Honestly, you would want to turn the density up all the way, and you'd probably want it to be a very, very high resolution. Any add-on suggestions for hard surface modeling and other mechanical rigging? I work in the vending industry and have just started animating some sub-assemblies at my workplace. I've heard there's some great things on Blender Market, soon to be Superhive. There is something called, what is it called? I can't remember. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like It's escaping me what the name is, but it's a very popular add-on that everyone uses, and I just can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry, but there are add-ons, and they do cost money, but they're on Blender Market. The reason I started Blender was only because of the sheer potential of a free application. Yep. And again, look, I realize this is not like Houdini level, as most people would say, but it's pretty good. Like, it's pretty good. I really, I don't know. I mean, I'll argue with someone if they want to argue. I'm sorry, but like for a free program, the fact that I can create this in less than an hour, that's pretty good. I don't really think you can beat that. And I'm not downloading Cinema 4D. I'm not paying for Houdini. I'm using Blender. It's free. And even if I have to put in 10 extra hours to get the result I want, I would say that that's worth it. Axiom is better than Embergen. Thanks for your time, Kenny. Much appreciated. No problem, Joe. Thanks for stopping in. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. Does professional studios hire people for Blender knowledge? I mean, I've heard Maya is more preferred in the industry. It really depends on who you're going to work for. That's why a lot of the time I just suggest you would like want to just do freelance projects, find clients, do freelance projects. I don't know what studios hire for Blender. I mean, I'm sure Blender hires for Blender people, but I don't know like how you would seek those individuals out that will hire specifically for Blender knowledge. Hey man, should I learn Blender and 3D or just go into cybersecurity and coding? I love 3D, but I don't like cybersecurity. Which one is better for making money in 5 years? Probably cybersecurity or coding. But again, I've been proven wrong before. And there's people out there like, what's the guy's name? Patrick 4D. Now he doesn't use Blender, but he does do 3D mockups. And I think that's his entire living. But the thing is, he's very popular on Instagram. He has a big following. He's been around in the industry for years. I met him at BlenderCon or BCon in California, and he was such a nice guy, really super talented. But he doesn't really use Blender that much. He does use it, but not that much. But he was there at the Blender conference, and he met some industry professionals and like leaders in the industry. It takes a while to like make a living. Like this is not my full-time job. I do not do this full-time, but I do love it, and I still get clients, and I earn money doing this stuff. The problem is getting consistent clients. Like you might not be able to rely on that. And until you have a client that's going to consistently pay you, it may be worth it to find something that's more stable, financially secure for you, that offers you that job security that you're probably looking for. And I would say that cybersecurity and coding are going nowhere. Coding might eventually get replaced by AI, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. And it still is an essential skill set to have. But I'm not going to give you financial advice because that's not really my expertise. Is it especially animation, medium, and smaller studios might be interested in Blender artists? It really depends. Yeah. And the other part of it is like if you can contribute some amazing quality visuals for a studio, they may not care what you use. You know, in fact, they might be like, go ahead, go for it. Use Blender. This is less of an expense on our end. People don't have to save up for a great computer. You can always get away with a cheap laptop and run Blender in a cloud workspace. That's a great idea. That is a really good idea, actually. I love that. Hard Ops. Yep, that's what it's called. That is it. Hard Ops. I'm pretty sure that's the add-on for hard surface modeling. That sounds right. Blender is greater than all other softwares. Period. End of story. Love it. Let's end the stream on that. I've chased the money and walked away from it because I need to create a living and finally got blessed with a full-time using Blender every day. CG Jack, that is fantastic, my friend. That is so cool. And good for you, man. I'm very happy for you that you were able to do that. Not everybody's that fortunate, and that's just incredible. Let's see. What are the steps to go to the Blender conference? I mean, go to the stage and give a speech. I think you have to ask them well in advance and reserve time to do that. I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to do that. I kind of asked around, and I made some friends there. And luckily, I was able to like get on stage the next day. Just because I was networking with people and I met the right people, and I asked them if I could go on stage and present my blueprint shader. They allowed it. Funny story though, I actually messed up the presentation because the Google document that I shared with them, the PowerPoint slideshow, it wasn't shared with everyone. So when I pulled it up, it actually didn't pull up properly. It was pretty embarrassing, but it you live and you learn, right? Those are lessons to be learned. How about animation fee? What do you mean? Oh, like how much to charge for animations? It really depends on the project. That is a tough topic. How much to charge for a project? Learn proper hard surf modeling before using add-ons. Really not ideal to rely on booleans. Yeah, you know what's funny though? Hasselhoff is that I love using booleans to model things, so I am guilty of that myself. Is there any Embergem liquid gen alternative cheaper than still doing good result? I don't know. Flip Fluids is good for Blender. Flip Fluids you can do a lot of fun things with. It's quite an experience. Yeah, I will never forget that. I was really embarrassed, but I was like, you know what? These people are just like me. Let me just continue, and humans make mistakes, right? Kind of just had to like eat that mistake and just keep going. Houdini Apprentice and Axiom is free, or whatever reason you can export VDBs. That's awesome. Why is this channel named CG Cookie? That would be for CG Cookie to answer, not me, but I'm sure there is a story behind it. See if I have any other quick renders to show you guys. I mean, that was the render. Oh, this is a different angle of the render. And actually what's funny is you'll notice, I'll just play this on loop. You'll notice how blurry it is. Like, this isn't a great render. It's very pixelated, voxely. It's not great. But I captured a second angle because I was going to make like a teaser trailer for this. I just didn't feel like it, so I never made it. But this is like, yeah, this was a cool one. It's pretty fun. What else do I have? This was the original one before I raised the resolution. And this one's still cool. Like, this is still a good product. It's still a good result. The difference here, like, the resolution's low, but like the smoke itself looked really good. If I had to, like, looking back, I always look at projects like this, I'm like, what would I change? Probably the wires. I would probably make them actually hang with real physics, which is super easy to do and fun to do. Maybe I'll cover that in the next one, like how to create wires with physics, because that's a fun one. Anyone using free Octane renderer for Blender? I tried it. I just couldn't wrap my head around how the heck it worked, but it was cool at the time that I did use it. Can you give any tips to eliminate smudging, flickering in renders? Yeah, I can actually, because I've had this issue before. A lot of the times, the issue that I face is usually with glass materials, and then it's also going to be with things that are clipping, so objects that are overlapping each other. One of the easiest ways to combat this in Blender, and I hope CG Cookie hasn't said anything, so I'll just keep going. In your render settings, right here under light paths, where it says max bounces, just turn all these up. I usually turn all of them to 20. You guys are going to think I'm crazy. I turn them all to 20. That's what I do, and it always helps. It always helps. And then, oh, and the other thing, make sure objects aren't like overlapping. If objects overlap, you're going to get some weird clipping and flickering. Other than that, raise your sample count. Don't use Eevee. Just kidding. Eevee's fine, but like, I like cycles. I've never had any issues with cycles. Usually flickering also will have to do with like weird light sources, or like light sources that are like not strong enough or too strong. There's so many like different things, right? I love Blender. I really want to get better at it and make indie games. That's awesome. Life slowly gets more hectic for me, and I'm in the process of applying for colleges. That's awesome. Good luck. If you have any colleges in mind, let us know what they are. We can give you some opinions. But yeah, education's super important. That could be a whole nother topic of conversation, but I know life is getting hectic for you. Like, hang in there. Dedicate some of your time every week to Blender to get better and learn. And I promise you it will be worth it. CG Jack B. I tried, but some had limitations. Attributes for the shader didn't work. Okay. I'm just looking at your comment here, Hasselhoff. How long did it take you to get as good as you are now with Blender? Well, the thing is, like, I don't really consider myself to be that good with Blender. I'm definitely very resourceful, but I'm not like an expert. Like, there's a lot of experts definitely out there. I'm up there, I guess, with the experts, but I'm not like, I wouldn't consider myself one. I've been using Blender for probably about 4 years now, and a lot of the stuff is like just shortcuts, like knowing the shortcuts, understanding how things work. Like, for example, if you're in Blender, like, one of the things I would do, I would just go to every tab up here and just like Like, what is it? What the heck does this do? What does this button do? Like, we all know the saying, what does this button do? You have to just experiment with it. That's like how I got good at Blender, but I'm definitely not an expert. But most of the time I'll be like, oh, what's modeling? Oh, I see. This is just the same workspace, but it just says something different, right? What's sculpting? Completely different workspace, but also like specifically for sculpting objects. UV editing. I rarely visit this area, but I know what it does and I know sort of how it works. Texture painting, rarely visit it. I know it's similar to UV editing, but it allows you to paint on objects. Shading, this is a big one. I'm here all the time. Animation, you could create this layout yourself. Rendering, never visit it. I don't need it. Compositing, rarely use it. I usually use Premiere. Geometry nodes, I'm often visiting this. Scripting, don't know enough about Python to actually get into it, but you can create your own custom scripts for add-ons and other things like that. And you can use AI to pop some code in here and test it out. And that's really it. I went through each one of those, figured out some about each one, and that's how I got good at Blender. Yep. Blender. So, hey, Saswat Sahu, not sure if I say your name properly, but thank you for joining. If it is 3 a.m., I highly suggest you get some sleep, my friend. And good night. Have a good one. Keep on blending. Yeah, Blender gives keyframes to 90% of sliders. Yeah, it's amazing, right? And that's because Blender, like, truly just is, like, open source, completely customizable. Like, everything should be keyframeable. There's certain things that make sense, like, why you can't keyframe them, but, like, the things that you can, I mean, Blender's great. What can I say? You know me, I'm gonna always be vouching for Blender. I do love Blender. What did we cover in our last live stream? Was it this? What is this? Oh yeah, this is what we covered in our last live stream. This was a fun one. Fluid, following a path. Maybe I'll cover something like this next time. This was when I was messing around with like how do I create yarn in Blender, or how do I create something that like looks kind of like yarn, and I feel like I got a like pretty good result. This was a fun one. I'll probably cover more stuff like this. I think there's something missing about Fire VFX. If it's okay, use a black background, but if it sucks in most cases in real footage. Yeah, and part of that I think is because like Fire has an emission to it. Like it actually emits light onto objects. So you got to compensate for that and make sure that that light spills out onto the other objects. And to do that in visual effects and post-processing is really difficult to do. So this was a fun one. Yeah, I actually sell this on my, I'm not trying to sell you guys anything, but I do sell this, I have a tutorial on how to do this, but I also sell this actual like template. This is another one, but this one, is animated. Where's the animation? The animation is somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. That was an old one. An old one, but a good one at that. Have you met Tan? I have met Tan. I met him at the Blender conference. Man, that was so cool. And I just like looked at him and I thanked him. God, he was such a nice guy. He was the nicest guy I ever met, probably. Like, not even considering that he like is responsible for all that is good in Blender, but he was just so nice. This was something I made for a client project. This was a fun one. This one I made in Blender a while ago. This was a client project. Pretty fun one. A little bit of, actually, the funny is there's a little bit of flickering in this render, but I think at the time they didn't care because it was like gemstones. But I made this a while ago. This was for like a rewards card thing that they had at the Venetian. This is probably my favorite one right here. Some VFX overlays with the dust there. Some shimmering done in post-processing in Blender Compositor. But like, yeah, this last one was fun because I get to like design the environment around the card. But yeah, Tan, on a side note about Tan, he was just such a nice guy. And he just had so many cool things to say about Blender. And I said thank you for like making Blender free and like providing a tool to artists that they can use whenever they want for free. And I just thanked him, you know, like sometimes you don't really know what to say to someone like that other than thank you, just because they like pretty much they changed a lot of lives. Like you think about how many people like Blender's affected, like that guy is pretty special, right? This is the thumbnail for the yarn. A lot of the times when you're doing things like this, you want to like have a strong sense of depth of field. So that's what I'm doing here with this. Also just like made for a better thumbnail too. But yeah, Ton was cool. I have a pic. I got a pic on my Instagram. I have a picture with him. And I just remember like that day, I was like, man, like that just about made my day. Like that was really cool. What else we got? Let's see. Oh man, I forgot about this. So I made this in Blender. Has anyone ever seen those brushless fans that you throw into your computer? Like this was like an old PC fan, and I challenged myself. I was like, let me model this in Blender. I have a video. I'll pull it up. Maybe I'll do like some modeling texturing next time. But this was a really challenging modeling thing for me. I must have a video. Okay, here's a video. All right, so this, is there a way to zoom in here? Can I zoom? I don't know. Is there a way to zoom, guys? I don't know. Maybe there's not. Okay, so this was the ultimate like render that I had thrown together. This was like really hard for me to model. This is probably like one of my more challenging like modeling processes here, but this one was like really fun to do. And believe it or not, I'm gonna get some haters here. Almost all of this was created using booleans. Like almost all of it. The only stuff that wasn't created using booleans was like the fan blades, I think, were just like planes that were distorted, and I used the simple deform modifier on those. But like almost all of this is entirely booleans and just like regular shapes. Like there's a lot of booleans going on in here. Did I meet Ian Hubert though? What kind of guy is he? I didn't meet him, but I heard his talk. He went up on stage and did a talk, and man, is he one crazy creative guy. Yeah, but for him, I didn't meet him, but I did listen to his talk, and his talk was really cool. What else we got on here? A lot of these are like really old projects. See. That was a fun one. Man, looking back, it's like crazy that I made like any of this stuff. What is this? Oh, this was when I made, this is a funny one. I made a like blend juice. Like I made like a fake drink called blend juice. And a lot of these I threw, because people were like really curious about like, why can I not zoom in on these anymore? I thought you could like zoom in on this stuff. Well, anyway, a lot of people were asking about like the texturing on this, but it's actually like really easy to create this kind of texturing, and all you really need is an image texture, and you just plug it into the roughness with a color ramp. Like it's like stupid simple to do, and then you just mess around with the fading and the scaling and the like where it sits. But this was this was a fun project. A lot of people asked me about like how I created that. Show us the first render. Oh, my first render? I don't think I have it on here. What is this? Oh, that's a fun one. That was a fun little render. I don't think I have. I don't think I have a first render. I might have like some other videos. Looking back, like I can't even believe I made some of this other stuff. Like I don't know what I was thinking. Oh my god, I probably thought I was so cool when I made this. I was like, this is like the coolest thing ever. Let me see if I can. I'll just go back as far as I can. A lot of this stuff is like client projects or just like old tutorials. What was this? Oh, that was a flip fluid simulation. All right, we'll go through a couple other ones, and then I think I'm gonna call it, guys, because this is like, I am way far back here. Oh, this was when I first learned about like smoke and volumetrics and stuff, and like how to make these like really cool lines coming through the light, and like these light paths and stuff like that. What was the render though? What render? Oh, are you talking about the glass that I had before? Is that what we're talking about? Like what is it? Like I don't know what the heck this is. I don't know. Like what was I making? Like I have no idea. But a lot of this is like old stuff. This was a modeling exercise that I did for that Pokemon. This was fun. Some of these are like memes that I made. Subsurface scattering. Oh, that's an old tutorial right there. FYI, bottom right slider bars for zooming in the picture. Oh, pfft. Wait, why is it not working? I do see the slider. It doesn't want to, maybe it doesn't want to work on some of these. That's so weird. It's not working. I swear I'm doing it. Even when I change the percentage. That is so weird. Anyway, this is a caustics render. Maybe I'll go over caustics next time. That's another thing we can go over. A lot of, again, I like going through old projects because it makes me think about new projects and what I can do better, or, I mean, what was the first render you made? I don't know. I don't remember. Oh, it was probably cubes. Like, you know what it was? I don't have it on here because my first render I ever made was on a different computer. I got this computer shortly after, like, I started to get into Blender and I started to get, like, clients and stuff. So, yeah, I'm sorry I don't have that. Where's the Pokemon one? One of these is really cool if I can... Oh, this was a fun one. The Pokemon card. Oh, that was such a cool one. This is my first shader I ever sold. This is my crystal shader, first shader I ever sold and created. I was so proud of myself. I thought I was so cool. Like, I was like, man, I am the coolest kid on the block. And I'm going to make so much money with this shader. That's pretty much it. That's all I got in here. All these other things are just like random files of like a bunch of nonsense that don't really mean anything to me. That's not true. They mean something to me. Oh, this one was cool. This one I made for Blender Market, or, well, I'll show you. I'll show you the, where's the final result for this one? Oh, this is a cool one too. Whoa. A little choppy. Not the highest, like, frame count there. Shows the recent projects you've done. These are my recent projects. These are like, oh, this one's a cool one. Forms into the Blender Market logo. Where do I sell my shaders? On my Kenny Phases Gumroad. Yeah, I sell all my shaders on the Gumroad page. This one's cool. This one's a smoke fill for the Blender Market logo. Little smoke fill. Maybe we'll do something like that next time. A lot of the times I'll work on these projects, but I don't ever get to, like, complete them. Oh, that was a cool shot. Look at that smoke expansion effect. So cool. A lot of these, the reason I don't like do a lot of these types of things is because they take so long to render out and process. I think this was the initial one that I was testing out. Yeah, this was, so the initial idea, before I even, this was like months ago. Actually, I think this was last year. I went to some of the guys at CG Cookie and I wanted to do a live stream or a video on this. And this was going to be like a smoke fill. Like, it was going to fill up a letter or like an object or a logo, whatever it was. And you basically just have like smoke emulating some turbulence, like other effects like that. But like, look how cool this looks. This one was a fun one. You can kind of see the smoke expanding through the letter B. This is so much fun. Thank you for sharing your experiences and projects with us. No problem. Absolutely. It's what I'm here to do. All right. Let's see what this one is. That one was cool. Just the initial. So what's really fun about this one here is that, one, it just looks freaking cool. But two, the texture that's on the volume is, it's animated. So it makes it look like the smoke is like it's going. I don't know if that sound effect properly fits this animation, but I'm not a Foley artist, as it's called. But you can kind of see how like the Voronoi texture is kind of like being, it's like going like, right? It's kind of like expanding and cascading, but it makes the smoke appear like it's moving more rapidly than it actually is. It's funny, I'm looking back and I'm like, darn it, I could have fixed those voxel issues. I could fix those now that I know, like, over new settings. But this is really cool. This was a fun one to work on. Do you have any hard surface modeling projects? Not really. I mean, I have modeling projects, but not necessarily like hard surface. Like, I have, let's see. A lot of the modeling that I do is not your traditional type of modeling. Here's one. This one right here, I modeled this from scratch based on like really simple objects and photo references. Where is it? I think it's this one. Yep, here we go. So This I did model from scratch, but this is kind of like a basic thing. I modeled and textured this and everything. And this is just like an old film camera that I worked on. So this was like, it's a good modeling example. I also modeled, this one I was really proud of. This is a Marshall speaker that I modeled. And I found a way to like do this mesh that was really cool. Here's a better view. Yeah, this one's pretty cool. This one I modeled as well. Pretty simple, but like at the same time, like getting the textures right and those little like details, like really hard to do. So these are like probably some of my better examples of modeling, but to be honest, that's not like my expertise at all. A lot of the stuff that I do, like I'll use a pre-existing model or make a really basic version of what I need. Here's a model I made. Made this model of a flashlight. It's a fun one. I like using booleans for modeling. I'm gonna get bashed in the comments for that, but like that's what I. Oh, here's go. I modeled this. This is a lock that I modeled. Of course, now I can zoom in when I don't want to, but I can. This was a fun one. You can see there's some fingerprints on the lock. Like it might be like overdone, but like this one was like this was a fun little render of like a lock that I made. I think I have a tutorial of this on my original channel. I'm pretty sure I do. Try to see if there's any other modeling examples. Oh, this one's good. This is another good one. My headphones that I have right here in front of me, I modeled those. And then I textured them as well. I don't know if I have a 360 view of that. I don't think that I do, but they turned out really nice. Modeled this. This is just like a fun little mini keyboard, like something stupid, but like I just modeled it. Modeled this. This is a keychain that I have for my car keys. Some of these are downloaded. What else? Not much else on here. Or unless probably some older projects like. Oh, this is a fun one. This is a Minecraft render. I forget how I did this. I think I made a block, like all the types of blocks, or like the basic blocks in Minecraft, and then I like, so funny, like the zoom doesn't want to work on some of these images. But this one was like really fun. I added some depth of field. This was like a fun little, stupid little render, but like still fun. It is fun looking back on like old projects and realizing like what I could have done better, or what I could have done worse, or what I did do worse, you know? Slack logo. That's a fun one. Laser scan. Oh, there's so many. These are just such old projects. Thor's hammer. I wish I could find the video to some of these because the videos were just the cool. That was the gold. Like that was the cool part of all these. All right, guys. I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. Unless there's any additional questions, I'm getting pretty tired, and I've been live streaming for quite some time now. So it's probably a good time to call it quits. What is this? I don't remember making this one, but here it is. Probably thought I was so cool making that render. Oh, forgot about this. Oh, this one's so great. That was one of my favorite projects. Definitely, by far. It's up there. All right, guys. I'm getting tired. My voice is getting coarse. Again, this is what we went over. I thought it was awesome. I thought we learned a lot of fun things here. I think we've been streaming for like, how long have we been streaming here? 2 hours? We've been streaming for 2 hours? Holy crap. All right, guys. I'm heading off. Have a great day. I will see you in the next live stream. Until then, see you later. Have a good day. Keep blending. If you have questions,